If you're just joining us, please drop your name, where you're from, your pronouns in the chat box. And if you have any questions tonight for Representative Kenyatta, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Or if you are joining us on Facebook, you can drop them on in the box there as well. We have organizers across the state who are ready and willing and able to join, help us. And so again, thank you so much for joining this evening. My name is Ashley McBride. I'm the state director for Our Future Pennsylvania, an organization committed to creating a more progressive Pennsylvania by raising the voices of voters across the Commonwealth. We are thrilled tonight to have State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta from Philadelphia on as a guest for a question and answer, a conversation about what we can do about raising the minimum wage here in Pennsylvania. This is a hot topic, and for those who are not familiar with this fight, it has been going on long. It's long overdue, right? We've been talking about this for really years and years, and we are on a tight schedule tonight. And so I'm going to introduce Representative Kenyatta in a second, but first I wanted to get some simple ground rules for everyone that is on tonight. I will moderate the question and answer for the representative. If you are in the audience and have a question, please place it in the comments and we will do our best to get it answered tonight, or we will follow up immediately following the event. We'll make sure to share the contact information of Representative Kenyatta's office by request if you drop that in the chat. But again, this is a long overdue conversation. For those who may not be familiar, last week we started this conversation with SEIU's Day of Action around the Fight for 15. The reality is that we have heard troubling news and even good news out of DC, but tonight we wanted to take an opportunity to talk about what we can do here in Pennsylvania. Without further ado, I am so happy and proud to introduce our guest, Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. Representative Kenyatta has been a fierce advocate for raising the minimum wage. As a legislator, he has been a champion for working people, pushing for increased access to healthcare, affordable education, and making government more accountable to its citizens. He was the first openly gay LGBTQ plus member of color and one of the youngest members ever elected to the Pennsylvania General Assembly, and he has been committed to creating a more equitable Commonwealth. Representative Kenyatta, we want to say welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. Representative Kenyatta, let me just say this to you. I have been so excited. I could not even sleep last night. I got a fresh new shirt for this and everything. I'm so excited that you're here. Certainly one of the things we've been having this conversation. We looked at what's happened in DC, and I think we want to make sure that we're holding our elected officials accountable, but we certainly want to take a moment to celebrate those who have lifted their voices and have always been on the right side of the issues. And so we are so happy to have you join us tonight. And we promise to stay on time and on track. There are people who are already dropping questions in the chat box, but certainly want to give you an opportunity to just open us up with any opening comments that you may have.
So first of all, thank you so much. We just had a hearing today where not one person on the panel about the impact of the minimum wage was a worker. Not one person on the panel was somebody who's actually have to live working 2 and 3 jobs like so many people on the call and folks that you love and work with and fight for. That is a big part of the problem with our government right now. That every 2, 4, 6 years, we get people who cosplay concern for working people. And then we have to cross our fingers and cross our toes and hope that they actually go and fight for those things once we elect them. I think enough of that, enough of it. The way that we're going to ultimately change this equation and change this political math is that we have to actually elect working people for state representative, for state senate, for city council, for school board, and yes, to the United States Senate. We are at a fundamental crossroads right now in this country. It's not the first time America has been here. If history is any guide, Ashley, it won't be the last time that we find ourselves here. But we are in a position where this pandemic, this cruel pandemic, which has stolen so many lives, has taken all the things that have been issues for a long period of time, and it's made it worse. So when I talk about the need to raise the wage, it's not because I read about that and was like, oh, that sounds good. My first job was the age of 12, washing dishes. I got a job under the table, washing dishes to help my mom pay the bills. My dad and mom divorced when I was pretty young. My mom was a home health care aide for most of her career, never made over 11 bucks, and it took her years and years and years to even get to the 11 bucks. Worked time and a half, overtime all the time, and still struggle every month to make it all work. I watched her ration her insulin so she could have food for me and my siblings. We moved 3 or 4 or 5 times as kids because we weren't able to make ends meet. And the sad thing about this, Ashley, is that what I'm telling you is not some like unique thing to anybody on this call, to most people who are watching. It's not unique. It's not unique anywhere except for the halls of government, where we keep electing millionaires or folks who are super well off, who promise, they cross their fingers, they promise they're gonna care about us, and then they don't actually care about us. And so I think the solution to this, and we'll talk some more about the policy and excited for the questions, but the solution to this in the long term is that we actually have a government that looks like the people that it ought to be serving. That's the only way we really square this circle, is that we elect people who know in their bones what's broken, who know in their bones what it looks like when government fails, who know in their bones what it looks like when people promise to care about them and then fall short. And so I learned 2 things a long time ago. I was 11 years old. It's the first time I ever got involved in politics. I was 11 years old. I came home and I was complaining about all this crap on the block. And my mama, God rest her soul, she was just a tough Black lady. She was sweet as pie, but she was tough. And without skipping a beat, she said, well, if you care so much, why don't you go do something about it? And so 2 things I learned from that. 1, we don't need anybody to come save us. So many people act like they're about to come save us. We don't need any saviors. Working people can speak up for ourselves. The second thing I learned is that when we come together and organize the way that we've been doing, the way that For Our Future has been doing, so many of the organizers and organizations that I see on this call, that on that grind of organizing until you get what you've been organizing for, when we do that, there's nothing we can't accomplish. I never run for office and ask people to put their hopes and dreams and faith into me. We just saw the people at CPAC bowing before a golden statue of Donald Trump. We have enough cults. What we need now is a coalition, because that's how you get big things done. You build the biggest coalition. And that is what we're going to need to do on raising the minimum wage. And I look forward to answering any and all the questions that we have on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think you have really, you said a lot there. There's nothing like a Black mama who will get you right together. So yes.
Right together.
Yes. I think, all right, so this is, I just want to be really honest. So For Our Future, again, in 2020, we made over 1.6 million calls. We knocked on over 700,000 doors. We talked to a lot of people. And one of the unique things is that we do is like, we don't go trying to sell a candidate or issue. We ask voters first what matters most to them. And there are so many Pennsylvanians who say, look, this issue about raising the minimum wage is important. And so here we get to this place with a new administration in DC, and we are relying upon really people who have made promises to us. But I'm trying to figure out, why can't we get this thing together in Pennsylvania? Could you give us a lay of the land where the fight for 15 is to raise wage? And we talk about what wasn't included in the stimulus plan, but what is the problem? Why can't we do this in Pennsylvania?
Because the Republican majority, Ashley, and I could say this in a nicer way, but I'm not going to, they don't give a damn about any of the people on this call. They don't. They don't. That's the answer. That's the answer. It's not a nice answer. That's the answer. I talked about this hearing we just had today. Folks can go on my Twitter. It's just at Malcolm Kenyatta. It's at my name. And see the conversation that I had with my Republican colleagues. They bring in this woman who comes in talking about how disastrous raising the minimum wage will be, come with all these reports. And before I came in, I read some of her other greatest hits that she's rolled out about how ending general assistance was great. It was wonderful. She loved it. How we need to do more welfare reform, kick more people off of social services. She loved it. She thought it was great. This was the great policy expert that they brought in to testify today. And I asked her point blank, well, how much do you make? Do you make $15,000 a year? You fine with that? And what she said, and for once, you know, the Commonwealth Foundation, she writes their policy. For once, they were honest. She said they don't believe in any form of a minimum wage. They don't believe in any floor. So if they could pay you $1, Ashley, they're fine with paying you $1. That's fine by them. You could make 50 cents. Sure, great. Love it. But the thing that she really said is that folks are paid based on the value that they provide. I remember everybody at the beginning of this pandemic changing their Facebook photos about talking about how much they love essential workers and essential workers are great and everybody, you know, releasing balloons and we love them, you're so great. And then when the essential workers will say, well, hey, I'm putting my health at risk, can I have hazard pay? Can you make sure when I show up to work, there's like mask and PPE? Can you pay me beyond the starvation level wage because I got 2 jobs? Then they want to tell me how the sky will fall. But the sky's not falling when big corporations and their CEOs and VPs are making thousands of dollars a second, thousands of dollars a minute. The sky's not falling then. Nobody talks to you about how many jobs we're going to lose then. So, listen, I've always taken the position that we ought to do something for people right now because people are hurting right now. When I didn't have food, I need something to eat right now, like not 2 election cycles from now, right now. And so I'm always committed to doing any and everything I can to move the ball right now, to get that first down. And I only use football metaphors because it's the only sport I understand. So nobody have any questions about anything beyond football. And yes, we should have traded Carson for people who want to wonder. But if we can get a first down right now, let's do it. But the reality is, sometimes you just have to win. You just have to win. You know, 50-50 in the Senate is not much of a majority. It's not much of a majority. And we see what happens when it's 50-50. One person who has some bad ideas can stop us from making the type of progress that we need to make. Old majority that's ready to deliver for the American people. And I'll repeat what I said multiple times. This is not about putting all your hopes and dreams into a person. This is about putting your hopes and dreams into what happens when we organize together. You talk about those millions of calls that you made, those doors that you knocked on, all those doors. We got to do that again. Because we know what happens in these midterm elections. Single white women, turnout drops, midterm elections. Young people of all races and gender, turnout drops in midterm elections. Black and brown voters, turnout drops in midterm elections. We cannot allow that to happen. Getting Joe Biden in the White House, winning the Senate by the skin of our teeth was necessary. And that work is about to pay off. Those stimulus checks are going to start to be sent out this week. That was a big deal. We're getting aid to state and local governments. That was a big deal. But we still need to cancel student debt. We still need to raise the minimum wage. We still need to make sure we're treating housing like an actual human right, that we get to Medicare for all, that we get folks out of our prisons. We still have that work left to do. And so let's celebrate where we are. I'm excited about that bill that President Biden just signed, but we cannot do it until we have a big majority that's ready to move forward in a bold way.
Absolutely. So I think, again, we talk about these misconceptions of who raising the minimum wage actually impacts. Is this false narrative that this is something that some teenagers will flipping a hamburger. But for a lot of working families out there, it can be hard to make ends meet. You talked about your own life. I got my own story. And I'm sure, as you said, many of us on this call, whether you're logged in on Zoom or watching us on Facebook, have a similar story. Especially trying to make it. And you also alluded to this, like we're having a conversation about $15, but we've been talking about fighting for 15 a long time ago. Have you heard, like, what do you hear, or what does it look like, the calls that you get from your constituents about the challenges that they face? Are you willing to share any of those with us? What are you hearing from people that you represent about how this could impact their lives?
So the sad news is that there's so many people in my district who at least have 2 jobs, at least. That's not even counting a little, side hustle, somebody asked you to do something here or there. It's not counting, I'm braiding some hair on the side or whatever I'm doing, It's not counting any of that. The Fair Hill part of my district, the average annual income, right under $10,000. $10,000. And what that does, there's this concept of ACEs that I know a lot of people on here know, these adverse childhood experiences. I didn't know anything about that growing up. I had a bunch of them, but I didn't know about it. The impact it's having is impact on our kids. First and foremost, on our kids. When you're not able to afford childcare, when you don't have stability in terms of your housing situation, because we've tied so much the zip code that a young person grows up into, the quality of education that they're going to get as it relates to education funding, and as it relates to just the way we treat the educators, the support staff, everybody that's in those buildings, and certainly the young people they serve. When you're in a position where you don't have adequate access to healthcare, what you see is compounding impact of us not working on this thing that, as you said, Ashley, we've been talking about for a long time, of raising the wage. When we don't give folks the ability to take care of themselves, even when they're working full time, we create a multiplicity of other challenges that it costs us more to deal with in the long run. It does not help a single soul to have a bunch of folks evicted. What nonsense? How could we be okay with that? It does not help anybody, small business owners, larger businesses, to restrict the buying power of people, because we know that folks that make less spend almost all of their income. This idea of living paycheck to paycheck, they're spending all of their income. And so every time somebody in my district gets some money, they're spending it on stuff that they've been waiting on. Maybe it's a car repair. Maybe it's just food. Maybe it's taking care of some bills that been piling up. So when people come into my office, certainly they talk about raising the minimum wage, but they're also talking about all the other things that have been stacked on top of them because we haven't addressed the core issue of deep poverty in our communities. Poverty is not something that happens because folks are lazy, and it's not something that happens by magic. It is a policy decision that we make. It's a policy decision we make. And when we make that policy decision, not only does that lead to a lack of direct resources in folks' pocket or pocketbooks right now, but it leads to a deepening of other systemic challenges that it costs government and costs communities to have to pay for and work on. And so that is what I'm dealing with in my district every single day.
Thank you so much for just your transparency. I was talking to a friend recently who I knew I was aware it worked the second job, but I was not aware worked 2 full-time jobs. And just in the conversation, talked about what it meant that, when other people are sleeping or have the opportunity to spend time with their family, what it means for a family, and sometimes in some situation where both parents are working 2 full-time jobs. We have a question that came through the chat. One of them is this discussion around fighting for 15, the small business versus the worker. And the question is, how do we break out of this narrative? Is it possible to address the needs of both groups? So this idea that if we increase the wage, it hurts small businesses or businesses, period.
I think this chicken little, the sky is gonna fall if we treat working people with dignity, that is so frustrating. I really don't want to embrace it, because we should not be using the old, tired, factually incorrect talking points of people who are fine with the status quo, right? As I just said today, the person who came in today and said, oh my gosh, the sky will fall if we raise the minimum wage, ultimately does not believe we should have any minimum wage. And so this is not a person we can trust to have a serious conversation about what level we should raise it to and how we can raise it. And so I'm not going to embrace that. What I'm going to ask you to do is look at the data. Every single state around us has raised the minimum wage. Have jobs from West Virginia and Ohio and New Jersey flooded into Pennsylvania because they've raised the minimum wage? Are workers in Pennsylvania just not skilled enough or don't bring enough to the table, as was said to me today, than workers in West Virginia and Ohio and New York, in New Jersey, in Delaware, in Maryland, in California? I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. We have a consumer-based economy. When consumers have more money, consumers can spend more money. The cost of goods has gone up dramatically. But if you adjust for inflation, the minimum wage is actually like $5 or so bucks. We cannot continue to legislate in a way that is not only cruel, but is short-sighted when we think about the impact on our economy. I often say to folks that a lot of times the right thing to do and the economically smart thing to do are the same things. They're the same things. And so this idea of scarcity is not real. And when I hear businesses say, oh, well, we're going to lose jobs, what I hear is actually a threat. They're saying, if I have to be forced to make less, then I'm going to threaten you the way that working people and folks in organized labor know all too well. Well, if you don't take this contract, then the next contract we put on the table is going to be even worse. But for people in my community, we already hit worse. So these threats are banal to me. And again, they're not backed up by the data. Almost everybody who has looked at this has made it clear. We have an independent financial office today who said, well, actually, we're giving you these projections, but really, we don't know, because it's difficult to project. And so if folks think that $15 is too high, then let's cut the salaries as well for the big folks, because apparently people making too much money is bad for the economy. So if folks believe that, then let's cut the salaries for big CEOs, because it's bad for our economy for people to make money. If that's what folks believe, then I think we ought to take that approach, and folks ought to put their money where their mouth is.
You said, yeah. There was a comment in the chat about raising minimum wage to $15 per hour is not effective unless we index it to inflation. And I think
Correct.
that is an excellent point. So yeah, put your money where your mouth is. For those who say it is bad for business, yeah, I'm with you. So at the risk of and I'm all about taking risk here. We're having this conversation about 15, but I'm sure that you're privy to research, again, that you are always very strategic in really your presentation. And I know that your staff does an incredible job. we're talking about $15, but what do people really need in Pennsylvania to live? Is $15 even enough?
I think that we have to get here first. It's not. It's not. The short answer to your question is it's not. But I think we have to get this done. We have to get this done. What we need to do, and whoever said it in the comment, thank you for saying that. And I've, you are part of the choir with me that has been saying this. We have to tie it so we're not having this conversation over and over and over again. And almost every $15 bill, even the one that was in Washington, that's not $15 overnight. It's a staggered, progression. If I would love to see us, first of all, just accomplish this. And I think that is important for people, particularly folks who are organizing and engaging for the first time. I talked about starting as a junior Black captain. I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you had I not done that. Because when you see something work, when you have that small victory, it helps you to start to believe that you can have other victories. And so my hope and my goal is that we accomplish the $15 minimum wage, that we have language in there that ties it to inflation or some other cost of living metric. There are a bunch of different ways you can do it. But I think that ultimately we need to accomplish that. And when people see what happens, I know it's not easy. And I know you've been doing this for a long time, and that breeds a certain level of frustration that when is it going to happen? But we are so much further along in this conversation than we were even 2-3 years ago because of the consistent pressure. So what I want to see is people keep the foot on the gas, continue to talk about this, continue to share your stories, continue to elect folks who know in their bones what's broken, That's what we need to do.
So I know that we're on a tight schedule. There are a few more questions that I'm seeing. I hope there are some questions. I've done my best to try to combine them, but certainly, again, for those who have posted questions, if we did not get to them this evening, we'll make sure we share them with the representative and we will follow up. I guess of my last two questions, one of them is, in your opinion, if this doesn't get done this year, if it doesn't happen soon, what's going to happen if we don't increase the minimum wage?
I have the I'm a nerd, particularly about history. Somebody today said I should call myself geek chic. I'll take it. Being a student of history, we don't have the luxury of giving up. We don't have the luxury of giving up. We're here right now having this conversation because we stand on the shoulders of folks who did not give up. And so one of the things I know that cannot happen is that we get weary and well-doing and say, oh, well, throw our hands up, whatever. That's one of the things that I know for sure we cannot allow to happen. I think that what will happen from an economic perspective is we won't have the type of robust recovery that we really need to have. And we won't have the ability to move from surviving to thriving. I said at the very beginning, I got involved in politics because I didn't have a choice, because it was about survival. But we have to move from surviving to thriving. And so what will happen, I hope, is that people double down, triple down, quadruple down, continue to work the process, continue to move the ball, continue to do what you've been doing. That is what we do, because we will reap if we faint not. That's what we have to do. We can't allow them to outlast us, because that is the last sort of gasp, of folks who hold a position that is no longer popular. Then they just try to outlast you, right? They can't out-argue you. They can't out-organize you. And so now they just try to outlast you. But we're going to outlast them because we're made of tough stuff. We can do tough things. We can do hard things. And that's the power of coalition. When you have a coalition, if you get a little tired, you get a little weak, then you got somebody on your shoulder who's like, You know, you take a break, hold on for a second. I got you. I'm gonna be at that next action because you need to do what you need to do. But we're gonna see you at the one after that. That's what we have to do for each other. And that's what our communities have always done for each other. That's what working families in Pennsylvania are doing right now. When you ain't got something, somebody down the street is helping you out. That's what we're going to continue to do. And that's how we move forward in unison, locked arms, clear eyes, clear vision, push ahead.
So that was going to be my last question, honestly, for you. We've gotten lots of really great comments. For anyone who is with us on Zoom, please, Kadita Kenner, who is with the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, has dropped all types of facts in there to really refute all of the garbage we hear from the other side. And there's a story in there from a viewer tonight that said it's sad to hear a kid asking her mother if she was going to work again after being picked up at daycare. I witnessed that yesterday when I picked up my kids. Her mother said yes. The little girl asked her if she could spend a little more time with her. I don't know. Again, this is far too familiar for too many of us. Representative Kenyatta, I think that we are at a place that a lot of times people are just what you said earlier. We've elected leaders who have promised things to us again, and this is on both sides. This isn't an issue just on one side. And we want to make sure that we're holding every elected leader accountable and that we are encouraging people to not give up or to give in. You said it, like, we shall reap if we don't faint. And in this process, we are not going to faint. I certainly want to thank you. I want to give you opportunity if there are any, and again, I know that you are on a strict time, but so I appreciate you giving us this time this evening. But certainly if there are any closing remarks before we turn it over to our team at FOF, I wanted to give you the opportunity and just say thank you again. And we're continuing here to be supportive of all your work in Harrisburg. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for your moderation today. You just fantastic job. Thank you for this conversation, and thank you for this opportunity to chat. We have it within us to really do big things for our communities. I've heard people talk about communities where people are struggling, calling them all types of demeaning, devastating names. We've seen people try to politically profit from our pain and then not deliver on that pain, on fixing that pain. What I want to say to everybody is to believe in the power of organizing. Believe in the power of organizing. That's what my campaign has always been about. It's what I've said over and over again. I want you to put your hopes and dreams in me. We don't need a cult of personality. But if you want to be a part of a coalition, a big coalition that gets things done, we can do better than people just cosplaying our concerns. We can do better than that. We can do better than having all these people who put up ads saying how much they care about working people, but then when a working person wants to speak, they say, shut up, we got you, we'll advocate for you. No. We can speak for ourselves because we bring with us a lived experience that you can't learn from a book, that you can't learn from moving into a community and try to learn about it. We have stuff that is built from heartache and from pain, but also from resilience, And when we get past the regional divides that people try to throw up, the racial divides that people try to throw up, the divides around sexual orientation and gender identity that people try to throw up, and recognize that us working people, we have something in common that all the elite folks who tell us how much great experience they have and all the stuff they know about making government work, and yet we're sitting here having these same conversations cycle after cycle, year after year. My grandmother, who's right here over my shoulder, called me last year, Ashley, And my grandmother, my last surviving grandparent, I've never known her to be like a really mushy person. And she said to me, baby, I'm so sorry. She said, I'm so sorry because I thought we had fixed some of this stuff. I refuse to have that conversation with my grandkids. I refuse to have to do it. And the way we ensure we don't have to do it is if we organize our communities and unleash the power of our communities to deliver big change. Believe in yourself and follow me on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. And I would love to continue to have a conversation. So thank you for your time. Thank you for not weeping, for not giving up, and for just continuing to not faint. God bless you and take care.
Thank you so much. And again, I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity again to say thank you for your incredible work. FOF does not endorse candidates in primaries. We do work, but again, Representative Kenyatta is a fine legislator who represents Philadelphia. He is also running for U.S. Senate. While we don't endorse, we certainly encourage you to make sure that you are following all of the candidates and finding information. And I'm sure, again, he has shared his Twitter information. So please make sure that you continue in this conversation and following his work. Again, thank you. At this point, I will turn it over to CJ.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Ashley. And also thank you, Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, for being here and pretty much just giving us the support that we needed here to kind of get the word out about raising the wage. I'm CJ with For Our Future. I'm a regional field director, and this work is what I live for. And as all of you that are here today, as all know, that we have so much more work to do. We're going to drop some links here in the chat, and we would love if you guys could be a part of that with us to make sure we have those petitions signed. You guys are going to be able to join us to volunteer, make calls, social media, anything, even if it's like 5-10 minutes. We would love to have you and be a part of this with us, so we can definitely do the work that's needed to continue on this work for things that's going to benefit working families. You guys will see that here in the chat just a moment, and we would love to have you all, and thank you again.
So just a couple things I want to, for clarity. Representative Kenyatta was with us tonight in his official capacity as an elected representative representing Philadelphia. Certainly, again, we will continue these conversations. We will continue to have this conversation about raising the wage, and we will continue to have the conversations that, as we're hearing from voters, from individuals like yourself, we will make sure that we continue those conversations. We want to thank each of you for taking time out this evening to join us. And as Christina has given us options and opportunities, they are dropping in the chat. I believe Jameer and CJ and others are putting them in. Please make sure that you continue to stay up to date with what's happening. Join us because, again, a lot of times there's one thing to get a call from a complete stranger, but we can make sure that our family, our friends, our neighbors are aware of what's going on. And even if minimum wage, for some people who say it doesn't directly impact them, we all know someone who has been impacted. And so we want to make sure that we stand in solidarity. That, again, that this isn't a conversation. We don't want to be having a conversation about another 1 year or 5 years or 10 years. We want to make sure this happens now. And even though we talk about parliamentary ruling in the federal government, the reality is that this is still a fight here in the state. And so, again, thank you to each of you for all of your hard work. If you put questions in the chat box that weren't answered, we will make sure that we get those over to Representative Kenyatta. If there are anything that you need questions, concerns, or you want to find out more ways to get involved, please put those things in the chat. Or if you're joining us on Facebook Live, you can do as well. We hope you have a wonderful evening. And certainly to the FOF team, to Liliana, to Ted, to Britt, to Juan, to CJ, to Jameer, to Monique. Thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.